This is Michael Good from reapertrades.com with another daily trade recap on October 14th, 2009. What you see before you is OPTT, Ocean Power Technologies Incorporated. It was one of only 2 stocks on my watch list last night, so there's no excuse if you weren't watching this today. I said this would be a great short on red, and I shorted it here. It's just at 7.70, and then it had a nice quick drop. It actually hit a low of about 7.56 briefly, had some decent volume in the mid 760s, and then it spiked hard and I covered there. And then it dropped the rest of the day. If I were trading it, I kept watching it. If I had still been in, I would have covered right about here. Of course, I wasn't still in. So this was a brutal 1,300 and change loss. And I actually got back in right about here and covered here because I was just so put off by my earlier loss that I wasn't willing to even have a normal stop. If I had stayed in, my second time I had 3,300 shares, my first time I had 5,000. If I had stayed in, I would have more than made up for my earlier loss. So, of course, the lesson from that, the second trade is don't get emotional and always have a reasonable loss and know what your stop loss is going to be before you enter the trade. That could be a problem with my first trade too, but that was a reasonable place to put my stop loss, my mental stop loss, just because I can't risk huge losses. I mean, yeah, the risk of it spiking up to 859 wasn't high, but I don't want to have to take a $4,000, $5,000 loss. So I'm not going to cry about that. And you're going to get whipsawed sometimes anytime you use a stop loss. It sure beats the alternative, which is to just hang on for dear life every time and sometimes have huge percentage losses like 15%, 20%, 50% losses. So I thought about shorting it again. The obvious point was right at the break of 7 or so, or just above it, 708, 705 or so. And if I had done that, there was some more downside, but the risk reward was less good there. So I had one other trade, BMTI. Faded it off of its highs. So it gapped up a bunch and then it dropped, and that I shouldn't have played it just because I was still off my rocker from my earlier loss. And I generally don't do well at these trades. But at the very least it was a small trade, correctly sized, so I didn't suffer much risk. So that's it for today. You can always see me, reapertrades.com. Thanks.